Hello beautiful creative friends, it's Belinda and today I am so excited to be sharing a flip through for you of my 2022 December daily album. As you can see, I have used one of the red albums from Citrus Twist, and on the spine I don't actually have a date in the book plate this year because a little while ago I made a whole bunch of Shrinky Dink tags with dates on them, and then I've used them in my little charm dangle. So you can see there, that's the year 2022. Really fun sparkly little charm dangle, and to adhere the dangle on, as you can see, I've got some red and white striped ribbon that goes along the outside. I've just stitched it together there to hold the little jump ring. And I'm just going to take that off actually while I do the flip through, just so it doesn't get in the way. And if I open it up inside, you can see I have just adhered that all the way down the inside with some hot glue. I tried to keep it nice and clean there. The inside cover of my album, as I always like to do, I have got some embossing. This is a gold star and polka dot pattern, and I believe this is something that I actually made up myself in Silhouette Studio and then cut it out using just some plain white cardstock, put my embossing ink through it, and then ran the gold embossing powder. I also have an R, which is our family initial, cute little Santa hat, and just a really simple little embellishment there. So for my title page, if we can even really call it a title page, my mum had created some Christmas cards the year before using this really cool folded paper technique to make a tree. And I had saved that technique and had intended on using it in my album from 2021, but it didn't quite work out, so I thought it would be perfect to open up this year's album. So just chose a few different pattern papers. I've got this star on the top. Now it is adhered down onto some acetate, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that up here, but it has got a really fine mint colored print on it, which is just some different Christmas themed words. So I adhered the tree onto the acetate using some tape runner, I believe, and then just to neaten it up at the back, I traced it out onto some gold glitter cardstock and adhered that down on the back, just to keep it nice and neat, so that you don't see all that tape on the back. The star, I heat embossed some gold glitter onto, this is a wood veneer star. And then I've actually just tied it on with some twine. And again, to keep it neat, the back of it, I just painted it red. Now I might zoom in just a little bit here and just see if we can get a little bit closer to my album as we do the flip through. And I think that's a little bit better. Because I wanted to be able to see that text, I did just put a plain piece of white cardstock behind that title page. Now you can see, I don't know if you can see, but there is a little bit of a bend in it already, because this is, as usual, a very, very full album. I do wonder if I'm ever going to get to a point where I don't have an album that is bursting at the seams, but certainly this year wasn't the year. This is, I suppose, more of a title page. It's got Christmas 2022. This was a cut file from Pear Tree Cut Files. I purchased, I think it was an Advent collection from them last year. And yeah, cut that out and I've adhered it onto, I managed to get hold of some really nice thick vellum. So I used that quite a lot in this album. And then I always like to include a little family photo and some details about how old we all are. So this, I got this idea, scrapbook.com had a die set that was available that was kind of similar to this, but to actually make this, I believe I found a cut file in the Silhouette design store, and I did have to manipulate it a little bit to get the pattern papers where I wanted them to be, but I love it. It's a little pocket, a heart pocket, and I can pull out the photo of us, which was taken in front of our Christmas tree after we had put it up, and then on the back is just our ages at the time that we started the month of December. So here is my, I guess it's my reason why page. I like to do set some sort of intentions or give a little bit of detail about what's been going on in the year and what my hopes are for December. This was just talking about how last year, 2022, was actually the year that we felt COVID the most here in Western Australia. So while the rest of the world had kind of gotten past the whole lockdowns and things like that, 2022 was when it finally came to town for us. So it was a tricky year, coming off the back of a couple of trickier years. So this first story here, I don't do a December daily, I just tell stories from throughout the month. I also don't add numbers or dates to the pages. I just let this whole thing speak for itself. So this first story is putting up the decorations. I used a lot of digital templates last year. I got them from a variety of different places and then took kind of a hybrid approach. So for this page and for this page, I planned them out in Photoshop, worked out what size I needed my photos, where I needed the photos to go, and then printed the backgrounds and then printed the photos separately and adhered everything on. And I believe these pieces here are actually cut out using my silhouette, and that was part of the template that I used. So again, just documenting the story of popping up our tree and our decorations, and then also the kids decorating little trees in their rooms. And this is a continuation of the story. So this is a couple of photos that we took in front of the tree after we had put it up. And then this is the star. I really, really love how this turned out. So I printed a full page photo of the star on top of our tree. Then my journaling went on to some vellum and I adhered that over the top with a brad and a little embellishment. And this is just telling the story of what we did when we were putting up the tree. And I really love that effect of the vellum on the photo. This page here, I'm pretty sure this was inspired by a Dearly D sketch challenge, I think. But I used this little circular wreath, which was very, very hard to cut out because the lines were actually really, really fine. But the circular wreath and then the photo in the background and the story is about our Christmas box arriving. I put it together, so me getting the Christmas box ready and just a little snapshot of what was inside them this year. Again, I really love the way that this one turned out, and I'm going to bring it up closer and see if you can actually get a better look at it. But I've taken a photo of our tree and then I've got some heat resistant acetate here. I ran it through my laser printer with my journaling in the shape of a tree over where the tree would be, and then I have put it through the Mink with some gold foil, so that it's acetate on top. You cannot do minking over a photo, it just gets too messy. I have tried it before, but the acetate over the top is absolutely perfect, and I love how that turned out. I'm trying to do some little ribbon tabs here, but my sewing machine really went to town eating that up. I just embraced the messiness of that little bit of stitching there. This one here, this is a story of our elf, Minty, arriving. This was not a digital template, this is just something that I created myself, and for this page and this page I was using supplies from Nellie and Clem, which unfortunately her store has closed now, but I do have lots of her collections to use in future projects. So this was the story of our elf Minty arriving, and here on this side it's the story of the kids making their Christmas cards, and I've got a couple of little flip outs, not flip ups, because I wanted to include what they had written inside their Christmas cards. So I scanned it, shrunk it down, printed it out to fit inside a 3x4 journal card, and then just added a couple of little embellishments to the top. I believe this one here is also using a digital collection. This may have been a lily pad collection that I was using here. These two stories do actually go together. This is another cut file from Pear Tree cut files from that same Advent collection, and this is just telling the story of a couple of little bits and pieces that came in the Christmas boxes, some that were a hit. The glasses were definitely a hit. These little melty bead things were huge fail. We ended up throwing them in the bin because we just could not get them to stay in place. It was way too hard. So not going to be getting any of those again. This is a really simple little spread here, little page, little story of all of my friends and all of our kids getting together for a Secret Santa picnic afternoon. And here I didn't create a lot of foundation pages, but I did prep quite a few things ahead of time. And one of the big things that I prepped was lots of pockets and envelopes and things like that. So I had created this pocket before starting to put my album together. Had no intention of what it was going to be for, but it ends up being the perfect home for all of the letters to Santa that my kids made. And I've added some little journaling here. So in actual fact, between home and school, they wrote quite a few different letters to Santa last year. So I have just made a note here that the reason I've got them is because Santa was kind enough to send them back here to me so that I could save them in my Christmas album, which was really very thoughtful of him, I think. And that is secured together with just a couple of little really flat adhesive magnets. And then Dear Santa, I can't remember if this is a cut file that I had already purchased or if it is, I feel like it was. It may have come out of that Pear Tree Cut Files Advent. If you want to know where that is, let me know and I'll have a look and find that out for you. I kept the back of the envelope plain. I really liked that pink polka dot pattern, so I didn't feel the need to fill that space with anything. This one here, I believe I started with a digital template. That was just to get the idea of the 3 photos and then the title and the journaling. This title here is cut out of a stiff red felt, and I used just some alphabet dies to cut it out, and then I think a little star die there. Really, really love that texture there. Again, very hybrid. I set it up in Photoshop, got my journaling where I wanted it to be, figured out what size I wanted my photos. I printed off the backing onto this patterned paper and then printed off the photos onto some photo paper and adhered them all down. Now this is actually an out of the pocket page, but it is adhered onto some acetate to give it some stability. I think that perhaps the reason that I did that is because I had intended on it being out of the page but hadn't left enough room in the margin to punch some holes, something like that. Anyway, it's adhered down with acetate, and on the back of that I've got my photo of the wrapping paper that I used for the year, and the digital elements that I used here are all from In a Creative Bubble. This was just capturing a few little details from the holiday season. I created these journal cards myself in Photoshop, pulled the colors for the titles from this digital collection from In a Creative Bubble, and I do actually think that I bring these journal cards in later on in the album, but it's kind of like a bit of a Polaroid with some journaling underneath them. So I've got a photo, a title, a bit of journaling, and a couple of little embellishments up there. And to help me with the prompt, I've just gone with ings. So I've got baking, drinking, loving, and making. And here is the story of our visit to Santa. I always like to get a couple of photos of the kids on their own aside from the professional photos, and then of course we turn over and we have the professional photo taken with Santa. Sometimes they're really funny about me taking photos of them sitting with Santa, but usually I can get a little snap behind the setup or just when they're talking to him before they go and sit down ready for the photo. And then this is the story of what seems to be a little bit of a tradition following our visits to Santa. We go up and visit the waffle place, Gelari, and overload the kids on sugar, because what do they need after the excitement of meeting Santa but more sugar? And and over the page here, my son's birthday is on the 18th of December, so I try not to include a lot about that because this is a family album, and of course I document his birthday in other places, but it is an important part of our December, so he always gets a little bit of a page. This time I included a little story here. He knew what he wanted to do for his birthday, and he wanted to finish off the day with a family Christmas movie night, and we had some nachos for dinner. So that's that little story here. This is another little pocket that I had pre-made ahead of time to go into my album. I'm going to bring it up a little bit closer in the hopes that you can see it. This is one that I designed myself in my Silhouette software. It's got a little window in it, and I've actually used some tulle which has got some little glittery pieces to fill the window. I created this title myself on my Silhouette, just cutting out some red cardstock with the words, and then I cut a backing piece from vellum, and the reason I did that was because I just wanted to have something for it to sit on against the tulle. And then I can pull out my little pocket. I called it Grinchmas. This was just a random assortment of pieces, bits and pieces, talking about just talking about how difficult I can find December sometimes, as I believe a lot of us can who are mothers and makers of magic. We're so busy making the magic for everyone else, and certainly as long as the kids are quite little, it is somewhat unappreciated. I just wanted to get those thoughts down, but I didn't want them to be visible to anyone that was just flicking through the album, so tucking them away in that pocket there was ideal for me. This is probably one of my favorite pages that I created in this album. This is using some products from Nellie and Clem. So last year she released these old VCR cassette printable cut file pieces. I thought this would be the perfect way to document the Christmas movies that we watched. So it took me a while to get this right, to get everything sized correctly, to get it all right, but I absolutely love the way that it turned out. So you can see I've got the covers of all the VCRs here. If you turn over, I have actually got the coordinating backs. It is all adhered down onto some acetate that has gold stars on them, and then each little cassette tape cover pulls out a cassette with the name of, and I'll see if I can get that in focus. There we go. It's got the name of the movie, and if you turn it over, a teeny tiny little snapshot from the movie, and then just a little bit of journaling about who watched it and what we thought about it. So that is a super fun interactive page, and I really love that. We've got A Boy Called Christmas, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and these stars were from a trim. It was a star trim, and I've just cut them down to individual stars, and as you can see, I've adhered them on with some stitching on my sewing machine. I've got Love Actually, I've got The Family Stone, those are classics. I've got Spirited, the new one with Will Ferrell last year, and Father Christmas is Back, which was a total fail for us. Yeah, so super fun interactive page. Now I had known that I was going to create this particular page a long time in advance, and ordinarily this wouldn't be the kind of journaling card that I would use. This is from Nellie and Clem as well, but I purchased this collection specifically for this card because I knew that we had a brand new coffee machine on its way to our house for Christmas. This was my husband's Christmas present to himself or from me or whatever. It is very fancy, it is very technical, and I like coffee. I'm just not as fussy about it as my husband is. He had been dreaming about this machine for a very, 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 very long time, and we had been without a coffee machine since May when ours died, and I think he sort of played the long game and he won out, and I ended up just telling him to go and order it. And yeah, this congratulations, the world's best cup of coffee. It does actually make a very, very good cup of coffee. So yeah, perfect journaling card for that. And all these little bits and pieces were also from Nellie and Clem. We've got some more Nellie and Clem stuff. So this was a super fun little event that I held at our house last year, and I'm actually going to be having again this year. So I've got a little group of mums that live in the same suburb that we've become friends through our children, and our children are friends too. So I invited them over to have the kids decorate some gingerbread men and the mums to have some cocktails. So I've got my story here. I've got a little photo of the grazing platter that I put together. This was another thing that I prepped ahead of time. This little folder here comes from Dealy Dee's Patreon group. This was a freebie that she offered. I think it was a few years ago now. So it's a little fold out envelope. It's got a pocket inside. This was the cocktail menu that I prepared for us, including the details about what was in each one of them. And then just for my own memory, I have actually gone and created little cards with the recipe for each of the cocktails that we enjoyed together. Super fun. Looking forward to doing it again this year. It's actually coming up at the end of this week. This is another freebie from Dealy Dee, and another thing that I had prepped ahead of time. It was intended just to be a filler page, and I think it goes really well in the middle of this story because it certainly was a holly jolly good time for the adults and for the kids. Just a few snaps of the kids. They made an absolute mess decorating their gingerbread men, but I loved it. They loved it. Everyone had a great time. These are also from Nellie and Clem, and to jazz up this little gingerbread man here, I've just added a couple of enamel dot buttons on his body, and then his little cheeks have got some enamel dots on them as well. This story here is a visit to an outdoor movie at a winery that is very, very close to where we live. They do this every year. They hold a couple of outdoor movie nights showing some Christmas movies. We went to see The Grinch. We thought we were going to see the live action one. It actually turned out to be the cartoon one, but the kids absolutely loved it. We talked about whether or not it could become a family Christmas tradition, which I would absolutely love to do. But unfortunately this year, none of the movie dates actually coincide with when my husband is home from work. So we're going to have to give it a miss this year. This is another hybrid page. A lot of the pages that I made this year in 2022 were hybrid. So I've got some foiling here that I did on my mink using some red foil. This is, I believe, an Inner Creative Bubble 3x8 card journaling piece. And yeah, printed all that out, figured out the size of my photo, and then just added some little elements around to finish it off. Now, I know there's a little bit of glare here, and I apologize for that. I just can't get away with filming without my lights on at the moment. This is just a little DIY acetate filler piece. I'm going to take it out and get it up closer for you. So this was a cut file from the Silhouette Design Store. Now, as you know, you can't actually print white at home, and I really wanted to have this in white text on some acetate. So I cut it out of white vinyl instead, and then I've adhered it down just to a piece of acetate. As it says there, Mrs. Claus's Kitchen, and this is just to introduce the little story behind it, which is a couple of photos of some of the Christmas baking that I did last year. I made some peanut butter M&M cookies with some Christmas confetti all over the top of them, Rocky Road, which I make every single year, and fruit mince pies, which I make every single year. This again was a digital template that I used. I actually minked this part of it again, but I used a pink mint here, pink foil here. It says eat, drink and be merry, and then I created these little labels myself using a stamp and die set that I have from Elves Studio. Now throughout my album you will see that I love to use gold glitter stars. I have an incredible die which unfortunately is no longer available. It was from Prima. It makes star confetti, so every year as I prep for December Daily I cut out a whole bunch of gold glitter stars and I have them in a bowl, and they make it onto just about every page that I create in my December Daily album. So turning over here, this little page here, it does end up adding quite a bit of bulk to my album, but I really like all these fun little elements. This is a little die that I've had, a shaker die that I've had for quite a while. I'm going to bring it out. So this is a pocket. I made this pocket and it is adhered, I'll pull that out as well. It is adhered straight onto the back of that page protector. So I've got some patterned paper. This is some vellum that now how did I actually do this? I don't know if I minked this or if I ran it through, I might have run it through a hot foil system with a polka dot hot foil plate. Added some stitching around the vellum and then stitched that whole thing down to create the pocket. A little tag here just telling you what the story is, the merry adventures of Minty the Elf. As you can see, again, I have created this as a hybrid tag. I created it in Photoshop, measured out the height of the two different sets of alphas that I wanted to use, printed out the adventures of the elf, and then stuck those alphas down. Because it's floating around outside of the page, I added just a row of stitching through the middle. I've also got this little chipboard piece here that says "Oh what fun," and I've adhered it all down with a little Christmas tree paper clip. And as it says, this is the story of the adventures of our elf Minty. So I've got the two letters that Minty wrote to the kids last year. One is when she arrived and one was when she left. And I was able to snap some photos of Minty in all of her little crazy antics last year, and I created this so I've actually printed the photos straight onto the back of this pattern paper, which came from crepe paper. So when you buy the crepe paper pattern paper pads, they always have, they're one-sided. So I've just printed the photos straight onto the back. I have added my journaling and this little QR code here. So as well as taking photos of Minty in all her little antics last year, I was also able to grab little small like 10-second snippets of video, and I compiled them all together. I've uploaded them to my YouTube channel. They are privately stored, and then that QR code takes you straight to the video. So a really fun way of documenting her little adventures with us. Like I said, this tag piece does add quite a bit of bulk, but I really love it. It's so fun. Can't not have it in the album. Now, when I said that the story of the movies that we watched might have been what was one of my favorite pages, this here I think is hands down my favorite out of all of the things that I included in this album. So last year my kids have been talking about Elvis quite a bit, asking lots of questions, and last year we really played a lot of Elvis Christmas songs. This Elvis Christmas album was on super high rotation throughout the month of December, and I thought, hey, what better way of documenting that than by recreating a paper version of the Elvis Christmas album vinyl. So I've created the album sleeve, complete with notes on the back. Inside, pull it out, we've got the little album notes. On the back it's got the track list, and then inside is my journaling, talking about how happy I was to be able to introduce my kids to Elvis. If you are familiar with vinyl, you'll know that they all come in their own little vellum sleeve inside the album, and then I created the record, both sides of the record. It's so kitschy. but I just absolutely love it. I was so proud of myself. It took a long time, a lot of fiddling around and a lot of mistakes, a lot of reprinting, a lot of recutting, and in fact it's still not quite perfect. This vellum sleeve is just slightly too big for the inside of the album, but it does go in there if you're careful with it. Again, it's a little bit bulky, but I just love it. I love it, absolutely love it. And now we have made it to Christmas Eve. So I made sure to take a couple of photos of us sitting at the table before we sat down to eat and open some presents. My family being who they are, like many, it is really hard to get a nice photo of the family together. So we did a few silly photos first, and then I was able to get my one nice photo and just some pretty little sequins in there. On the back, I've got a little bit of journaling about our Christmas feasting. We typically celebrate Christmas Eve just with our little immediate family at home. We have a nice meal. We open up presents from each other. We've just recently gotten onto fresh lobster. I'm very lucky where I live in Western Australia. We get lobster fresh off the boat every day. So we managed to get that on the barbecue again. The kids won't eat lobster though, so they get some sausages. And just a couple of pictures of the setup of the table and the wine that we were drinking. And here we have those journal cards that I created again. This time I just took a photo of each of us, or had a photo taken of each of us opening some gifts, and then wrote our names and a little summary of the gifts that we received from each other. And just a photo of our tree with all of the presents stacked up, my previous year's December albums down the bottom. And this is a star cut out of that same red stiff felt that you saw earlier in the album. And over the back, I've got some journaling that I wrote just about the magic of Christmas Eve and what an incredibly fun and magical night it is for the kids and also for us. And just talking about the traditions that have carried over from my childhood, from my husband's childhood, and that we're now passing down to our kids for Christmas Eve. Oh dear, that was glued on. I'm going to have to re-adhere that down, I think. So I've got these really cool little banner dies that have a stitched detail around the border, and I like to use those just with my offcuts of pattern paper and throw them into a bowl and then use them where I need them to. So here they were perfect for holding just a little bit of journaling, I guess it's journaling, little labels of what each of the photos was. And now we have made it to Christmas Day. So a couple of photos. Actually, this was one photo that I cut down in the middle. So I've got each child on a side each, diving into their Santa sacks first thing in the morning. And again, just talking about how magical and how exciting it is to wake up on Christmas morning and find what was those flat sacks from the night before bulging with gifts. To sort of a bit of a title for introducing Christmas Day, I've got this acetate insert which has got some gold stripes, and then I used some alphabet dies that I have to cut out the words Christmas Day, and I have adhered them back and front, and then I've put the row of stitching through with my sewing machine just to adhere them down. This is the photo of the food at my mum and dad's house for Christmas. You can see I've created a really fun little shaker pocket here. I divided it in two, and this cut file here was definitely one from Pear Tree Cut Files. Embellishment pieces here that I've used were from the Lily Pad collection, Christmas collection that was released last year. Still on Christmas Day here, this is the kids all around the kids table. So this is a tradition that started when I was really little and we were going to my grandparents' house for Christmas. There was always the adults table and the kids table, probably like many families do. But I love this now, seeing that this is my kids and my brother's kids, and they've got their own little Christmas table. The chaos that is opening presents all together. And then here is my journaling about it. So this one here was from, this little journaling card was from In a Creative Bubble. I wanted to jazz it up a little bit, and again, it took a little bit of trial and error to get it right, but it's actually been run through my laser printer first to get the outline pieces, and then if I take it out and hold it up, you might be able to see it a little bit better. It's got red foiling on it. So I did all of these outside pieces first, put some red foil on it through my Mink. Then I ran it through my inkjet printer to add colour to each of the letters and to the star, and then to print the journaling in here. It's not perfectly aligned, it's a little bit off, but it's close enough to be good enough, and I really love how that turned out. On the back here, this is just a little filler. So this was another one from In a Creative Bubble. It was a black background with white text, which of course was perfect for running through the Mink. And I used this beautiful gold foil star piece. You can see it's not perfect. There are a few spots where the foil hasn't adhered quite well, but again, it's close enough to be good enough. This is a photo of all of my nieces and my kids together, and just a little bit of journaling about how fun it is to see them all together and how much they enjoy being together. I think this was a journaling card from Elle's Studio that I'd had in my stash for quite a while, and these little embellishment pieces are from Nellie and Clem. And then on the back, we have got to the end of Christmas Day, which is where I finish my album. Just a little snapshot of how we ended the night, which is typically how I end every night on Christmas Day, with some leftovers and a White Russian. Don't ask me why I drink a White Russian on Christmas Day, I just do. And a little bit of journaling about how I'm feeling about getting to the end of it. This was a little filler piece that I made myself. I believe the cut file came from the Silhouette Design store. I knew that I wanted to add this Merry Christmas to All and to All a Good Night to close the album. So I have this acetate piece which came from a very old Ali Edwards kit. It's got some green foliage and white sort of snow dots all over it. And then I used my Silhouette to cut out this gold foil, not gold, red foil vinyl, and then I've adhered that down. And lastly, I think it's lastly, yes, this was another pocket that I created ahead of time with no real thoughts about what I was going to use it for, but it actually holds Christmas cards, and I don't know why that's stuck in there. It actually holds Christmas cards that we received that I wanted to hold on to for the year. There's some homemade Christmas cards from the kids. There's also some cards that we received from family members. My mum's card, she has been making the most amazing Christmas cards lately. She's really gotten into card making. It was a bit too big and bulky to fit into that pocket, so I just adhered the envelope that it came into the back of my album, cut a little notch out with a circle punch, and then I can just pull that card in and out as I need to. So that is it. Very, very long for a very, very chunky album. I do hope that you have enjoyed watching this flip through. Of course, if you have any questions whatsoever about techniques, about products, or anything at all to do with this album, please feel free to go ahead and leave me a comment down below. And so I think I will leave it there and say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.